So this right here is me talking with a DeepSeek AI agent, which has access to my files. So in today's video, I'm going to show you how to make this full AI agent automation, which includes creating a vector database, which accesses your Google Drive files, and then having this database accessible by your AI agent, which you can chat to in this UI. So to do all of this, we're going to have to create APIs for Google, for Pinecone for our indexing, also for DeepSeek using Groq Cloud. And don't worry, I'm going to explain everything in nice, easy, simple to do terms. And by the end, you'll have your own DeepSeek AI agent that uses this RAG architecture to interact and tell you answers based on your own personal documents. Now, before we get into the video, briefly ask if you can like this video, comment any questions, queries, and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. So without further ado, let's get into the video. So before we start building, let's talk about what is RAG. Well, RAG stands for Retrieval-Augmented Generation. Now what this simply means is that when your LLM is querying something, when it is generating something, it retrieves some sort of documentation or some sort of vector, right, to augment its generation. Basically, it gets it more information. So the process for actually doing this is, as you can see here, now don't worry, this isn't as scary as it looks. I'll break it down really simply. So the first thing you do is you get your raw data source. Now in our example, the raw data source is Google Drive. So just Google Drive files, that's our raw data source, and then we download it. And so from here, that's we get the raw data source, which is Google Drive, and we extract that information. Now, when we have these downloaded files, this extracted information, the next thing to do is chunking. This is breaking it up into little pieces, because these little pieces will then be embedded and stored in a database. So chunking is simply breaking it up into little bits, and that's what this is here. So default data loader just loads the data, so loads the files, and this recursive character text splitter chunks it into little pieces. Now, when you have these chunked little pieces, we then embed them. Now, what does that mean? Well, embedding is essentially turning characters into numbers. Now, the reason we do this is because these numbers, these vectors, are then stored inside a vector database, inside here. So we'll talk about what a vector database is in a moment, but first, the embedding, you can see here, we're using Google's Gemini. Now we use an LLM to embed, so it has to be a pre-trained LLM, and I'll show you why now. So if we look here, let's just briefly touch on vector databases. So a vector database is where you have something, so say an image, text, or audio, just something, and then you want to turn it into a vector, which is just numbers, or a assortment of numbers, a list of numbers. Now, this first goes through a transformer, which is like the embeddings in our case, turns it into vectors, and then these vectors get stored in a vector database. Now, what does that actually look like? Well, this here is what it looks like. It's a three-dimensional space, and each chunk, each thing is stored as a point in this three-dimensional space, with things which are closely related stored next to one another. Now, when you embed, you turn, for instance, wolf into this point, dog into this point. Now, how do you know what to embed? Well, that's why you need a pre-trained LLM so that it can decide what the embeddings should be, such that it then gets sorted in some capacity. So like, for example, this could be fruits, and this could be all mammals, for example, something like that. So that's how then it's very efficient at searching for things, because it can find related items or objects or vectors really fast. So that's your vector database here. Now, in our example here, we're using Pinecone vector store for that. So that's how to fill the vector store. Now, once it's filled, you want to then say chat with your documents. You want to find stuff out. So you have to, in our example here, we chat with the agent goes to the model, or is the model, because the agent here in this sense is just a framework, and that framework can have models, memories, and tools, or well, one model, one memory store. This is previous chats, and then tools, which are the things that they have access to do things. So for example here, the thing that it has access to is this vector store tool, which is essentially connecting the vector database to here. Now, for the vector store, it needs two things. It needs a model and it needs a vector store. And this vector store needs embeddings. Why? So if we come back to here, this RAG explanation. So if we start from query, so you have a query, so this is you chatting. This is your chat piece. When you chat, it has to get embedded because everything is stored in this vector DB like this here, right? So, or well, not like that, like this piece here. And so when we want to query the vector database, and the reason we use a vector database is because it's super fast for querying versus like just using actual queries. And so you embed your query, so say BCD or whatever, right? And then that will get turned into numbers. So like 2, 3, 4, for example, right? And then that embedding is used to query against this vector database for relevant data. So then relevant data comes out. So this here could be relevant because, you know, it's similar to this, which then gets passed into the LLM. And then the LLM can now leverage this data to then give a response, which looks like here we have the Google embeddings again, and we have another model connected up such that then we can retrieve the data and then we can bring that into the AI agent so that it can actually leverage that data inside. So that's the brief explanation of RAG. Right, so let's get started in creating this here. So I'll take this off screen and we'll start from scratch. So if we open up anyend.io, this is the platform we're going to leverage here, and it is an automation platform. Now this automation platform, as we can see here, you can use it for IT operations. So for example here, onboard new joiners, security operations, enrich security incident tickets, DevOps, analyze GitHub PRs, sales, enrich new HubSpot company. So basically, it automates loads of stuff, anything. Just basically leveraging the tools that are in it. Now the cool thing about NAN as well is that it does have templates. So up at the top here we've got templates. In this we have 1,272 workflow automation templates. Now they span AI, SecOps, sales, finance, product, support, whatever, right? So let's click on AI. And if we scroll down here, like the first one, automate content generator for WordPress with DeepSeek. If we scroll down just randomly, RAG Chatbot for company documents using Google Drive and Gemini, which is actually the template that is the basis for this. So this guy here, don't know how to say his name, Mahai maybe. But anyway, thank you very much for your donation to the community. And so this here is we're leveraging this, but we're just changing it to use DeepSeek. But we'll build it from scratch because it's important that you actually know how to do it instead of just clicking go, go, go. To get started, we sign in. And now sign in here with, or create an account with the Gmail that you want to use for your Google APIs. Because if you don't, then it might throw an error. And now when you first come on, you see that there's 13 days left in your free trial. Now, that's because NAN is free for the first 14 days. But you can then save what you have and then just put it on a new account with a new email and get 14 days again, if you're wanting to do that to test it out. But in the next video, we're actually going to build this out completely from scratch in code so that you don't have to pay whatever it is, 25 quid a month, or mess around with free trials. The only thing is you obviously have the overhead of maintaining the API calls and stuff. So we open up the workspace, we have this here, and what we want to do is create a workflow. Now when you create a workflow, this is what you're going to be landed with, and also if you're in not this dark mode, if you're in light mode, if you come to the bottom left, 3 dots, settings, here, personalization, theme, and we can change that theme to whatever you want it to be. We're going to use dark theme because it's much easier on the eyes. So now let's go back here. So the first thing we have to do is add your first step. Now, if you recall, our first step is when a Google Drive file is created or updated. So we can have a bunch here. We can trigger it manually on an app event, on a schedule, webhooks, forms, blah, 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 chat. But today we're going to use Drive. So if we search nodes, Drive, Google Drive, we have this here, on changes to a specific file, on changes involving a specific folder. So if we do on changes to a specific file first, credential to connect with. So from here, you won't have any. It will say create new credential. And if you click on that, it will then say OAuth 2 recommended. So from here, we're going to have to go and get an OAuth 2 credentials. So we're going to have to go to console.cloud.google.com/APIs. So we're going to have to go to this here. Now, I think you could also just do Cloud Google API, and it'll probably come up. There we go. So you don't need to remember that. Now, if we go into the API manager, which is where we were here, first thing we have to do is enable APIs and services. So to do that, we have to have a project. So I have a bunch of projects here. We'll create a new one, new project, and for this here, we'll call it NEN RAG, and I want to call mine 2 because I've already tried this before. Click create. Right, so now you have this new project in an organization. No organization, that's fine for me because I don't need organizations. Projects will do. And so when that's done, you'll be able to go up here and change to that project. And then from here, we want to go and enable the Drive API. So click Enable APIs and Services. And from here, you can go and look, see what all the stuff you can use. For example, if we just look in the top, there's maps, then there's machine learning APIs. We then have workspace APIs, YouTube, for example, so you can go and get your YouTube data, which is cool. Social, advertising, mobile, enterprise, other, right? And if you want to search for specific ones, you can search it up here. Now, I was going to search for Drive, but you can see that it's right here. So let's click Google Drive API and click Enable. And then this will enable your API. And they say it can take like 5 to 30 minutes or something like that. But it happens normally pretty much instantly. I think that's just a kind of SLA. So, you know, it definitely will be ready within 30 minutes or whatever. So to use this, we all have to create credentials. But first, whilst we're here, we also, if I bring this back over just for a sec, we also have to create this embeddings Google Gemini. So we're as well enabling Gemini whilst we're in this APIs portion. So if we go back here and enable APIs and services, and then from here, if we write generation and search, and we'll get Gemini API. On my other project, it was called Generative AI or something. But anyway, Gemini API, enable that. And then when that's enabled, we can go and create our OAuth credential. So if we now click create credentials or go to credentials on the left, we'll just click create. And from here, select an API. So let's actually instead, right, go to credentials on the left, create credentials. Right, so OAuth client ID, that's what we're after, not an API. So first, it's going to say you have to configure a consent screen. So basically, because you're using this API, you have to create a screen, because OAuth client ID is essentially, you'll put in here, and it's basically like a username and password, and then you click sign into Google, and it'll open up and say, do you consent? And you click yes. So to get that to pop up so that you can use these APIs, you have to configure the consent screen. If we go here, it will take us to the old version. We don't want to do this because it will take us through loads of loopholes. Just got to go to new experience. Right, and then from here, if we click get started and give your app a name, so we'll call this RAG2, and then your support email will just be your email. Click next. We'll do external because NAN is external. We'll write our email in for contact info, and then agree, continue, and create. And so then now it will create this application. So you can kind of think about it, just very briefly, like you have this application, you have NAN here, and you have your API keys, and this is like the doorway to your API keys. And so you then have to publish this door so that NAN can see it, use your client ID and your secret key, so basically your username and password, to then get in to use the APIs. So if we come back here and we go to audience, and then we publish our app. So when we publish this app, now NAN will be able to use it. And there we go. So in production, perfect, right. So now from here, if we go back to, I think it's Google Auth platform, let me see. Right, so if we click open this sidebar and go back to APIs and services, and from here we go to credentials, create credential, OAuth client ID. I know it's a fair way to get here. Configure consent screen. Why is it still not doing that? Right, there we go. So just had to refresh, probably refresh the token, which is authenticating me in. Right, so then here, application type, web application, and we here will give it a name, call it NAN rag2, and then we want to authorize a redirect URI. So users will be redirected to this path after they've authenticated. So if we copy that, paste that in here, and then click create. You see it says it may take 5 minutes for fuels to take effect. It just disappeared. So that's that now created. If we click on it, and here we go. So don't share this information with anybody, this client ID and especially your client secret, because they are your secret key to using this API. If someone gets these, they can then use it, and they can basically use your APIs as you, which is not good because APIs can cost money. So let's first copy the client ID. Go back here, paste that in. Then let's copy the client secret, and we'll paste that in. Now you'll see it'll pop up saying sign in with Google. And now we go here, you choose your account, it'll log you in, and then it will redirect you back. So here, Google hasn't verified this app. It's just because it's your new app. If your developer submit a verification request to remove this screen, but it's all good because this is just for us to use. So you click advanced, it opens it up, and then you can continue only, go to NAN. So that's the redirect. So select all, continue, and then we now have let NAN use these APIs, and so it will redirect us to NAN, and there we go. That's us connected up to Google Drive. So from here, the trigger, we have poll times. So basically what this means is how often is it going to check for these updates. So you can have every minute, every hour, every day, every week, every month, whatever you want, or custom. So we'll just do every minute, that's fine. Trigger on changes to a file or involving a specific folder. So what we can do is if we do changes involving a specific folder, and we'll do from list, do the drop down, and then it will go and find all of the different folders that you have in your drive. So for example, if I search test, I have test docs here, because if I go here, you can see that in my drive.google.com, I created a test docs folder so that we can use these as our company documents to chat with. And then we'll say watch for, and we can have file created, file updated, folder, watch folder, blah, blah, blah. So what we'll do is we want to do file created or file updated. So whenever something is changed, essentially. So we'll do file created. Then we'll shut that down. Then what we'll do is we just Command C, Command V. So we now have two of them. Click on the second one. I'll double click on it. Get this open, and we'll change this one to file updated. Then put it back down. So now we have these two triggers, which is essentially, this one is, we'll see if we can rename it, file created. So we'll change that up here to file created, rename. And this one, we'll change this to file updated and rename that. So we have these two triggers. Now we want to download the files so that we can then embed them and put them in the vector store. So we can click plus on either one of these, which means the next step in the workflow. So click plus here. And then if we just do Drive again, Google Drive, click on that. And so from here now, because this isn't a trigger, this is an action, you can see that there's a bunch of actions. So you can copy files, delete files, download them, move them, create folders, create shared drives, etc. So loads of stuff. For us, we want to download the file, so click download file, and then we just want to connect it to the exact same credential, resource, file, or folder. So we'll do file because we're just wanting to get the individual files. Not to try and re-download the folder every time. Operation, download. And so what we want here is we want to change this from list to by ID. And we're going to paste in this here, JSON ID, and then we're going to add an option as well. for the file name, and we'll make that an expression here. Paste that in, JSON.name. Change that to expression. So we have fixed or expressions. Fixed means actual text, so it would actually store this as the text that you see, whereas expression is like a function, so it gets the ID of the JSON. Now the option here, we have file name, and that's because we want to store the name of the file as well. Now JSON.id, JSON.name, what are they? Well, we have this here. If we bring this down, let's bring that over here. There we go. So whenever something happens here, it will then automatically go to this next. And so the JSON in this instance comes from the input, which we'll see when we run this. So let's test the workflow and see how we're getting on so far. So we click test workflow, you see it started there, went to here. So it goes green when it's done, and the red circle or orange with a spinning circle bit in the middle. Basically that's saying that it's running. So green, all looking good. So what we can do is we can either double click on it here, and we can then go and have a look, or you can go to executions up here. So you have editor, executions. If we click on executions, we can see when it's been run. And there you go. So this will always be there. Even if we run, another 10 times, we can always come back to see this actual run. Make sure you save, because I've been hit by dodgy expressions that I've written which have crashed the website. So, and then I can't save it, refresh it, and everything's gone. So keep saving. So anyway, if we double click on the first one, we can see what's happening. So on the left here, we have our input. On the right, we have our output. In the middle is our settings. So on the left, you can see we don't have any input. But on the right, we do have an output, because there is no input really to this. It's a trigger. So, but the output, we can have it either in table format, so this here. We can see it in JSON format, so as objects, like this here. Or we can see it in the schema format, which is much easier to use when you're actually using NAN, and even just to read. So, the output here, we have a bunch of stuff. We don't really need to know much about it, other than the part for the next one. So if you go to this next one, we'll see that this input is the exact same as the output for the trigger. So Google Drive trigger file created. This was that output, which is this input. And then this goes through the process in downloading Google Drive. And then this is the output, document2.txt. So you can now see that this JSON.id, actually, if we change this on the left to JSON, let's see, we can Command F, ID, and we can see that it's this one here. Now the reason I know it's this one, let me see if I can flick through here, is because of the levels. So you can see each one of these like big white lines is like a depth. So this depth is all the way in here. This depth for the other one, let me see. So that one, there's 2, and then it's here. There's the other one. Can't see it on screen. Anyway, basically, for this one here, this is JSON. So JSON is this object, and then .id, it means like one level in. So one level in, ID. And then the other one is name, which is this one here. And then we can verify that that's what we're actually looking at by if we change this on the right to JSON, and we can see there should be a file name option and an ID option. So there's your ID there, and the name, and a bunch of other stuff. So as you can see, very granular, so you can pass different pieces of information, but this is all we need. So we can see that it's downloaded this. If we click view, we can see that it has text here. And this text, what we'll do just to double check, let's copy that. Let's open up a new page. We'll do diff check. And if we paste this on one side, so diff check just checks the differences between two chunks of text. So this is what we have brought in via NAN. And if we go here, go to document 2, and then if we just copy this, we paste this on the other side, find difference, it should be exactly the same. The two files are identical. Perfect. So we can see it has downloaded that successfully. Now that we have the files downloading, the next thing to do is to add the vector store, because we're downloading the files but we're not putting them anywhere. So the next thing we have to add here is a Pinecone vector store. So click plus, then up here we can search the nodes, and we'll do Pinecone vector store. You can also, if you just write vector, you can see the different vector stores that we have. So we do have an in-memory vector store, Pinecone Superbase, which is a popular backend for a lot of like kind of one-person startups. They'll use Superbase, and they have Postgres, for example. So, but in today we're going to use Pinecone. Click Pinecone, and then today what I want to do is we want to add documents to a vector store. So click on that one and we can see that this pops up here. So the first thing I want to do is connect to the credentials. So we want to get a Pinecone API. So click create new credential. And for here, all we need is a key. So let's go to pinecone.io. So at pinecone.io, essentially Pinecone is just a hosts your vector DBs. That's all we're using it for today. So you can sign up or log in. You'll probably need to sign up. I'll log in. And then it will then sort itself out. And then you'll have to create a base project. For me, I just called it AI agents. And within here, we want to create an index. So I have here company files, which is the one you're going to want to create. So I'll show you how to do that. Let's delete that one. And you can give it whatever name you want, but I'll call it company files. If you name it something else, whenever I refer to company files in the future, you'll need to change what you're doing. So we have this here. If you wanted to use Pinecone like this VectorDB programmatically, so for instance in the next video, when I show you how to do it, we can use this API, but for us today we just want to create the index that we're going to use. So if we go to, on the left, API keys, because that's what we want first, click create an API key, and here we'll write any n-rag2, create key, and then here it'll create a key. Now you can either look at it, if I show you I'll need to delete it, or you can just copy it. Just copy it. As you say, you must copy and save this key immediately, so you can save it to your desktop as well if you want, but I would advise not doing that and just recreating API keys if you need them. So in here, just paste that in, and then save, and voila, it is now connected. Right, so now in here we have a bunch of operations we can use: get, insert, retrieve, update. We just want to insert the documents that we download in Pinecone index, so from list, and if we click here, we'll see there are none, and that's because we have to create an index. So if we go back to Pinecone, let's close that, let's go to the database, and within here we want to create an index, and this is essentially like your little database, and we'll call it company index. And then in here we want to set dimensions, metric, cosine, that's fine. We're not going to talk about this stuff. This is basically to do with your vector and stuff. But dimensions, if you choose one of these, they will automatically give you a dimension there. And that's because each embedding has a different dimension. Now for us, we're going to be using Gemini for embedding. If I bring it over, let's see. Show you here. So we're going to bring in embeddings Gemini, right? And specifically for Gemini, the embeddings, I believe it is 768, I think. Let me double check that. And we can see here that embeddings in Gemini API are under 768. So if we go back to here, we'll put in our dimensions as 768. There we go. And that's fine. Capacity mode, we're going to do serverless, because essentially we're just going to be like, just spin up whatever compute you need. Because if you think about it, to store it and all this stuff, it needs resources. Serverless just means that we don't tell it what resources, it just decides. Cloud provider, now you can choose whichever one you want. We'll just go AWS, that's fine. Region, US East 1, that's fine. Deletion protection, now we'll just leave that. That's all good. And we're currently on starter plan, which allows 2 gig of storage, 1 million read units and writes per month, up to 5 indexes, 100 namespaces, unlimited members. More than enough for our 3 documents in our test docs. So let's click create index. And now we'll have this company index in our NA10. So we give that a moment. It should be up and running now. Back here, let's click on it again. Change this. There we go, company index. Boom, there we go. So we can see this here. Google Drive, we have that there. We could test this step by clicking test step. And we'll see what it does. So executing previous nodes, blah, blah, blah. Right, output. So embedding subnode must be connected and enabled. So we can see here now we have this Pinecone vector store. Now we are required to connect an embedding model and the document. So if we go embedding model, and from here you can pick whichever model you want. We'll use Google Gemini. So that's the one we used. That's one we're going to use. Click create new credential, and from here we need an API. So if we go back to this API here, if we go back, so we created that OAuth, now we need an API. So go to Google OAuth platform, or is it 3 navigation, API, credentials, and then from credentials we can create a credential, and this credential is an API key. Now this API key will allow us to use our Google Cloud API, in which we have enabled already Gemini. So click copy, close. Let's go back here, we'll paste this in. Again, don't show it with anyone. Save, and that's that saved. So we now have this connection. Let's click on that. And then the model here, we can choose whichever model we want. We'll just go with text embedding 4. And then that's that, all good. So we have the embedding, we now have to add the document. So for that, we're going to use the default loader. So we have here 2 ways of loading it. Use GitHub data as input or load data from previous step in the workflow. And we want to do it from our drive. So from here, the type of data, it's binary data. So you get JSON or binary. Binary is just any data. JSON is specifically a JSON object. So ours is binary because it's a file, text file. Have you ever heard of the phrase blob? So binary large object. Binary is what computers use, zeros and ones. So when people refer to a binary object, they just mean some object that uses zeros and ones. Normally it's a big file of unstructured data. So mode, we have fixed or expression. Here we're going to actually not load all input data, but load specific data. Now the specific data we're going to use is automatically detected, and the input data field name will be data, and that should be enough information for it to get the data. And if we then click on text splitter, from here we want to get a recursive character text splitter. So we can either split text into chunks by characters. So like for instance, every time you see a space, chunk it. Or you can do token, so every time you see a specific thing, change it. Or just recursively do it. And we want to recursively do it. Chunk size 1000, overlap 100. And so if you're wondering, chunk overlap, chunk size. So a chunk is just a chunk. And chunk overlap refers to the portion of text that is shared between 2 adjacent chunks, so literally the overlapping piece, when dividing a larger text into smaller segments. And if we come back to our workflow, that should be all good here. Let's click out. And now, moment of truth. Let's save it. And then let's test it. See, it's in Google Drive, it's downloaded it, it's gone to the ears, chunked it, boom, boom, done. That was rapid. Cool. Right, so let's go to Pinecone console and we'll refresh here. Sometimes it takes a minute for it to load in here, but it might be here already. Let's see. Come on. No records yet. But it will in a minute, so I'll give it a second. But for reference also, for these documents here, I'll add them into the first link in the description. Will take you to the guide, which will have all of this stuff. But essentially, the way that I got in these documents, which if we open them up, are just fake documents. Acme Innovations, leading the future of tech. Is I just went to ChatGPT and I was like, write me some fake company documents. Give me 3 of them as .txt files. Now, if you try and do it on one of the fancy new models, 01, 03 or whatever, it doesn't work. You have to do it on like 4.0. Because the reasoning models are like, I'm sorry, I can't give you a file. Whereas 4 is like, yep, sure, that's fine. Oh, Pinecone, haha, there we go. See, boom, they're here. And it has the Acme Innovations leading the future, blah, blah, blah. So perfect. So we now have a vector database, which is pulling stuff in via trigger. So that's all on file created. Let's do on a file updated. So let's open this. Now I downloaded text editor, or the way that you do it is, when you want to open a file in here, it will give you options. If you open it as a Google Doc, it won't save it as a .txt, it will then save it as a Google Doc. So it saves it as a new file. What we can do here is we can connect more apps or apps on your computer. And on connect more apps, you can then find apps on the marketplace. I literally had just written in text editor or text edit and been like, boom, text editor. You can click install, that'll do, whatever one you want. So I'm just going to open it with the one that I had already downloaded, text editor. And from here, we have here texteditor.co. opens the doc. Perfect. So the thing now we can do is, what will we add? Let's add a number here, 890. Perfect. And then save to drive, and it will save those changes. Just a little text change. And if we go here, and then let's run the workflow, wallet detect. I suppose the updated might only be if it's active. Although it is active. Let me make it inactive, because I was testing it. Go to executions. We'll see what's here. Right, so that's fine. So it has run at 34. Right, cool. So let's turn it to active. Got it. And then we'll make another change. Let me change this. We'll just delete some of it. Then save to drive. And we'll go back here and we'll go to our executions. And there we go. So 35. Execution is running. Succeeded. There we go. So it's come from file updated. So if we click on that. Output, let's do schema. JSON schema. Let's see. Right, there we go. So if we control F in table, it's much easier to find. We can see original file name. We can also see the name here. So document 1, and that is the one that we had edited, document 1. Perfect. So it's now working for updating files and creating files, and it's working on the trigger when it's active. Let's make it inactive. Go back to editor. And so that is how you get files automatically put into a vector DB so that your large language model can then use them for RAG. So we have now done the first half. Now in a moment, let's come back and we will do the second half, which is leveraging the AI agent to actually implement RAG using our new vector database, which runs automatically in the background, which is cool. Right, so the next thing I want to do is add another trigger. So we click on plus, we'll add another trigger, and this time we want to do it on chat message. So where has it appeared? It's here, right? So let's pull that off, and we'll bring it down here. And then we want to add from this trigger, which is when a message is received. And for reference, if you're wondering where does the message go, how is it received? Down the bottom, if we click chat, it's from here. So we can just say hi, and obviously nothing will happen because it's not attached to anything, so it's just a message. However, the cool thing with messages, which I'll show you just briefly, if we double click on it, we have the settings here, there's no input, so no left hand side, only an output. But if we get rid of that, we can go here and we can make chat publicly available. So if you click on that and toggle it, we can then copy this. You can see that's a hosted chat or an embedded. So hosted is on any end servers, so we have this actual link we can go to. Or we can have it embedded where you like put it on your own website or your own application and no authentication, or you could do like a login screen and then the initial message. So like, hi, my name is Luke. How can I assist you today? I'll do, hi there, my name is Luke. Any cues about the doc? And then what we can do is copy that, go back here, make sure it's active. Got it. And then we'll paste it up here. And there we go. So now we have a chatbot. Hi there, my name is Luke. Any questions about the doc? Say hi. And then, yeah, nothing comes back. Nothing proper. Because it's not connected to the agent. But as you can see, we can now leverage that as a chatbot, which is pretty cool. So the thing that we want to connect to the chatbot is an AI agent. So if we click plus, we can add a bunch of stuff. Action in-app, like Drive, bunch of other stuff, as you can see. You can connect to so many tools, even like GitHub and stuff, Gmail. Proper cool. So you can also manipulate data, transform data, flows. So like if the chat is a specific thing, you could make it go a specific route, for example. But anyway, for us, just advanced AI, we'll go to AI agent. There's a bunch of other AI stuff, but we just want agent. And then from here, we have the option of which type of agent you want it to be. And for us, we want it to be a tools agent. You can have it just conversational, OpenAI function, blah, blah, blah. As you can see, we just want tools because we're going to give it the tool, the vector store to use. Now, source for prompt, connected chat trigger, perfect. And so the input will be JSON chat input. And we don't require a specific output, it can just be whatever it wants. However, we're going to add in an option here for a system message. So the system message is what you tell the AI and it, or the LLM, and it takes in this system message and it will influence how it responds. For example, if we go to Groq, which is where we'll go to shortly, Groq, Groq, it's a place where you get API keys that you can use for free. So for the language model, for example, if we go to limits here on Groq Cloud, we have all of these chat bots or chat completion LLMs and speech to text, which you can use completely for free. So I don't have my credit card or debit card or anything in here, and I get this limit. So for example, I can use DeepSeek. I can do 30 requests a minute or 6,000 tokens, whichever comes first, but there's no limit per day. So every day, every minute of every day, I can do 30 requests completely for free, which is amazing, especially if you consider for DeepSeek, you can chat online here fine, but if you try and use the DeepSeek API, it's been like 2 weeks now. I still don't have the DeepSeek API because the website's been under maintenance. So if we click on it here. Oh, interesting. Yesterday when I done the dry run of this, I didn't have a DeepSeek API. But anyway, even if I do sign up for the DeepSeek API, you get charged for it. It's cheap-ish, but as you can see here, you're still getting charged. So token, what's that, 1.014 cent, which isn't much, but you know, it's much more expensive than free. So anyway, as I was saying, the system message, if we go back to Playground, this is where you can just write in some prompts like this. Hi, who are you? Submit. Hello, I'm an artificial intelligence, blah blah blah, known as Llama, large language model, Meta AI, which is up here. That's where you can decide. So let's do DeepSeek instead, and then we'll rewrite this. So we'll say, hi, who are you? Submit. Right, and it says, hi, I'm DeepSeek. Right, but a system message, what we can do is we can say, you are OpenAI ChatGPT. And then we'll write it again and see what they say. And the model should be like, oh, I'm ChatGPT. Maybe not. Interesting. But a good way to do it is something like, you are a restaurant owner, as a good example. Let's delete this, and delete this, and this, and this. So you're a restaurant owner, and then we'll say, what's for dinner? Instead of just telling you an idea, it will tell you as if it was a restaurant owner. So as a restaurant owner, ability to share tonight's specials with you. So you can do that, and then the cool thing is then every time the user interacts with a system, the system goes, haha, I'm a restaurant owner. We're back here. I'm going to copy and paste this in. And it says, you're a helpful HR assistant designed to complete employee questions based on company policies. Retrieve relevant info from the provided internal documents and provide a concise, accurate, and informative answer to the employee's question. Use the tool, blah, blah, blah. If answer cannot be found, I don't have that available. Right, so we're telling it this because otherwise, A, it may not know to use the tool. It might still figure it out, but you want to guarantee that it knows. And secondly, you say this I cannot find because you don't want it to go away and just make something up. You want it to be like, if it's not there, just tell me you don't have it. Cool, so that's how we set up the AI agent. There we go, which is the framework. So we have to now add the model. So to add the model, click plus. We can add Anthropic, Azure OpenAI, AWS Bedrock, Gemini, Vertex, Groq, Mistral, Ollama, and OpenAI. We're going to use Groq because through Groq you can use the DeepSeek API. So to connect, create new credential, and then we'll go to Groq. So that's here, go to API keys, and we'll create an API key. And the same as normal, don't share it with anyone. It's your private API key, and you don't want someone else to use up your limited tokens or get you charged. So we've copied that, paste it in here, save, and the connection has tested successfully, which means we're connected. Perfect. So connected here, and then we can now decide on a model. So for us, you can see there's a bunch of models, but we want to use DeepSeek. And that's us. Let's click out. And so next we have memory and tools. So for the memory, let me click on that first. This is for the way for your AI agent to remember your chats. So we can For example, we could use Redis or Postgres to store these in some database somewhere, or we could just use window buffer memory, which is the easiest. It stores it in any10's memory, so no credentials are required. So it just remembers the last however many chats that you've had, like chat messages, which you define here, and context window length. So we're going to do 5, that's fine. So it'll just remember the past 5 messages, which means if you say, you know, what's the answer to this specific question, or some reference, and then 3 or 4 messages later you go, in reference to what we're talking about, what's the answer? It will remember what you're talking about. Without this, each one has no idea. For example, in my previous demo, we had created a calendar app, so this here. And in this calendar app, here you get a get calendar, so this gets what's in your calendar, and this here update updates what's in the calendar. Now, if you say on the chat with no memory, get my events today, then you say now update whichever one you have. So for example, in the thing I had to cancel some AI. I'd say cancel the AI, and it would be like, what AI? Whereas as soon as you add the memory, cancel AI, and it goes, oh, this AI, I remember. Right, so we have that 5 length. That's perfect. Now the next thing we want to add is a tool. So the reason this is an agent, so it's like a RAG agent and not a workflow, is the key difference and distinguishing piece between being an agent and being a workflow would be if we were to add something here. So let me just add something. Just add a tool, Gmail tool, that'll be fine. Let's click out. So if I add it as a tool, it means the AI agent is aware of it. And if I ask it to do something, it'll go, right, let me use that tool. Whereas if I had it up here, so if I disconnect it, if I had it up here as a workflow, so that would mean that it would go, chats received, the agent would do something, then Gmail send message would happen in this order. The agent doesn't know this exists. It just so happens that the output of the agent is the input for the Gmail, or at least it's the next step. So let's delete that. So the tool that we want to add here is this vector store question answer tool. So we click on that, we have answer questions with a vector store. And the data name, let's just call it company documents tool. And the description of the data is, we'll have this here. Retrieve information from any company documents with a limit of 4. What is a limit? The maximum number of results to return. So 4 is fine in this instance. So now we have this answer questions with a vector store tool. We have to connect then the vector store and the model that we're going to use. So the vector store for this tool is our Pinecone vector store. So if we click on that, and then what we have here is the same as normal, that account 2 up top, yours will be just account. Operation mode, retrieve documents as a vector store for chain or tool. And then for the Pinecone index, we'll do from list again, and we'll choose our company index. And then that's all good there. Let's click out. And the other thing here that we have to keep in mind is this embedding piece. Now you can actually see a fast way to do it is from here. We can click embedding down the bottom because it's a necessary part of here. And for our embeddings, again, we use Gemini and we use 004. And we'll make sure it's the right API. Perfect. Right, and then we'll connect that up here. And now we have that vector store connected. And then we'll also add the model here. So we have Groq, and we'll do DeepSeek. And then we can click out. And so let's test this. So we know from our previous run up here, let's check executions. If we click on one from here, we can see that that loaded it in. And if we double click, we'll see which file it was. So page contents, blah, 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 founded in 2010. It's a pioneer technology firm dedicated to creating blah, blah, blah. Right, cool. So now that we have this all up and running, let's give it a test and see if the RAG's working. So we'll say something like, what's the company core values? So if we go to our test docs, we can see here core values, innovation, integrity, collaboration, and sustainability. So let's see if it can bring them back. Click send. Right, it's in the agent. Let's check in the vector DB. Boom. faster than I could even ask it to come back. There we go, innovation, integrity, collaboration, sustainability, exactly what we were after. So the RAG is working, and we proved that this was working just before. So let's now do a little test. So let's make it active. Got it. And then now let's take away one of these lines. So let's open this with text editor, and we'll remove one of these core values. Let's remove integrity and save to drive. And then we'll go back here, and this should have executed or be executing. So let's go to executions and we'll see. 3946. So I think that did run. Oh no, that was the last thing. So let's see, auto refresh. So the trigger, if you recall, it pulls every minute. So could be up to a minute before it starts. Oh, that's it done there. Let me see. Click on it. Right, green, 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 green all round. So now for the AI agent, let's instead, we'll go to our chatbot. Let's open this up. And from here, let's say the exact same query, which will be if we go to editor, we'll copy that, paste it in here. What's the company core values? Let's see. Integrity, innovation, customer focus, teamwork, and sustainability. Even more. Let me paste that into here if it does the same thing. Because it might be coming from memory. Innovation, integrity, collaboration, sustainability. Right. Let's reset this session and we'll ask it again. Oh, it's even more now. Right, I don't even think it went into the vector store by the looks of it. Let's reset it again. What? We'll rewrite it. What are? Is it ASME? What's the place? Acme Inc. Innovations. Core values. Right. Let's see. Goes into the queue. A vector store. It's going in. It's having a look around. It's embedding stuff. Models figuring out the answer. Innovation, integrity, collaboration, sustainability. Right. So must be something to do with this vector store. I wonder if it's just updating. Updating information, or if it's actually rewriting information. I have a funny feeling that it's just continually downloading. Yeah, because we have here 1, 2, 3, 4, and they're all the same ones. So every time it's running, I think it's overwriting it. So let's see, how will we fix that? Right, it's look from the future. It looks like there is no way to do it. I've looked up online, and there is one way to update files, which is selecting them by ID. So this guy, for example, Nate Herc, he does stuff on AI, specifically using NA10, and even his video, he doesn't know of a programmatic way to do it. So like in Supabase, you can actually use the ID from the metadata. So like these kind of fields, right? You can use it. However, in Pinecone, it comes from ID, so you can have this ID. So what we can do is we could get, this record. Let me see the text here, and we could update this text and then assign the actual ID inside Pinecone. If you change the mode to update, but then you're working with individual vectors, which is just not what you want to be doing. So I feel like this RAG is mainly for creating your first ever vector DB, and I feel like the updating trigger doesn't really work as it should. So whoever the guy was that made this and had given it to the community, You probably should have mentioned that. I'll need to mention it at the beginning of the video. But anyway, yeah, so if you want to see how to actually update it, we might use Supabase, or I'll see if I can figure out a workaround here to maybe store the name of the file in the field and then delete that file, or all the vectors with that file and then redo only that file or something like that. I don't know. I think that could possibly work. But anyway, if you want to see how to do that, let me know and I can make a video on how to update your vector database. But take this video as how to create one and interact with it. And in the next video we have planned, we're going to do this whole thing except in code, meaning you don't have to pay any N every month, 25 quid. You can just like, comment, subscribe this, and you could join the channel as a member if you want. Helps me out to help you out. Anyway, take care and I'll see you later.